so that you may not be judged. For with the judgment you make, you will be judged. And the measure you give will be the measure you get. Why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye, but do not notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your neighbor, let me take the speck out of your eye while the log is in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your neighbor's eye. This is the wisdom of God. Please be seated. Last week I was sharing with you a little bit about what I see as my gifts and graces and my not so good things. And another one of it is fashion. I don't understand fashion. I've never understood fashion. I was the kid who got up and put my hand in the drawer. Whatever I caught, that's what got on. It didn't matter if it matched or anything. And then I see fashion go all crazy, like the baggy pants that people wear. These guys wear these baggy pants. That one I don't understand. And what about all the slits? You know the slits in the pants that the women wear? All these things, do they buy them like that? What a waste. And do they wear those in Alaska? And the guys who are over 40 who wear their baseball caps on backwards still. Tailgaters I do not like. I do not like people who buy big trucks and drive on the freeway like they're driving a sports car. I have little patience with people who are in a crowd and talk on their cell phones. I'm in disbelief of athletes who make so much money and end up bankrupt. And the worst thing of all are people who are judgmental. And the Bible's pretty clear about that, right? Judge that you not be judged. We know this. But we also have to know that judgment is simply part of life. You cannot go through a day and not make judgments, small as they might be. When you're on the freeway driving, you don't always have time to look at Google, and you have to make quick decisions, judgments. Oh, and by the way, if you're looking at Google while you're driving, we make judgments to survive. We also make judgments to belong. We decide we're going to wear something because it makes us feel like we belong in the group. And we tend to judge the faster we go. If we're moving very fast, that means, of course, we have less time to wonder, to think, and to make a better decision. And our culture is going fast all the time. And what happens is inevitably we are making judgments without knowing very much at all. What about that young man with the baggy pants? What do I know about him? Don't I still have to be open to him? Don't I have to be wondering about who he is? Maybe he is wearing those pants because all of his friends do, and that makes him fit in. I'll accept that. Did I ever do that? Did you ever do that? When I was young, it was plain white t-shirts, Levi's with the red tag, and Adidas shoes. And the way you presented your personality is choosing which Adidas color that you were going to have. And I don't know if that tailgater is just a bad person or an idiot. Maybe he's on an emergency. Maybe there's something wrong. Maybe he had an argument with his wife. At least then he wouldn't be an idiot unless you have to ask her. Maybe she would change her mind about that. The person talking on the cell phone may also have an emergency, or maybe, and I know people do this, they're just faking that they're talking because they don't want to feel lonely. The point is, we make judgments of people all the time, and a lot of time they are premature and simply not true. A tool that I have used to help me curtail my judgments is the Japanese proverb, "Ura ni wa ura ga aru." And it means even undersides have undersides. The book that I got this from says the English equivalent is there are wheels within wheels, and I can see that, but at the beginning I hear this as there's more there than meets the eye. There's more there than meets the eye. Regarding people, there are undersides to people that we do not see and we do not know. Few things are as complex as a single human being, and each person has a story, and within that story there are stories, and within those stories there are more stories. Family origin, relationships, experiences, places, traumas, they all are part of a person's story. And that influences who they are. With all of this, it feels impossible to know a person completely. And it is. Even married to somebody for 50 years, do we know them completely? And if we accept all of this, I think we have to be a little bit kinder to the guy with the baggy pants. But what about parents who let their children go all over the place unattended? They're slacker parents. What's up with them? Well, maybe they have between them 3 jobs, and they have a sick child, and they don't have health insurance. The person who dominates conversation, maybe that person has some mental illness, and maybe she's in a manic state. We don't know. The rude person in the store may be going through a divorce. Or maybe the tailgater has a child in the back seat, and the child's going, "Daddy, I have to go pee-pee now." That puts your foot on the accelerator. My bet is, when Jesus was telling people whoever is without sin to cast the first stone, he had the advantage over the crowd. He knew all the undersides of the woman. Who are we to portend judgment when we know so little? Yet we do. Another part of this proverb I associate with the Tao Te Ching, which is your yin and your yang. You know those, right? And one is that in yin and yang, there's also an element of the opposite in them. They're not pure, which means that there's no absolutes. No absolutes. But the other thing I think it means is that with every strength, there's a parallel weakness. With every weakness, there is a parallel strength. They are attached. So the person who is shy may be the best listener in the crowd. The good listener may not be good with details. The person who is good with details may not be able to see the big picture. The visionary who talks a lot may not be able to clean his room. The depressed person often sees the world more clearly than most. The person who espouses to see the cup half full may actually feel very empty. The talented artist may not be able to handle money very well. You have a good thing coupled with something that's difficult. They're all connected. So if I say to my brilliant and imaginative child, "Clean your room," and I say, "You have to keep it clean all the time," what's going to happen to his imagination? If we see that depression is only negative, we will miss the gifts that come from depression. Think of all the artists. Ura niwa, ura ga aru. Okay, so picture now a job interview. Anybody been to a job interview? Yeah. And not an interview, I mean evaluation, that's what I meant. And you're being assessed, and you're looking at your strengths, and then you're looking at your No, we don't say weaknesses. We hate that. We say, what do we say? The one I get is growing edges. What the heck is that? So the message that we get is we have to keep our strengths where they are. We have to make our weaknesses growing edges because they can't be weaknesses, and we have to pull them up to be strengths too. And then we're all strong. What is that? Didn't Paul say, "When I am weak, then I am strong"? Okay, here's a more personal look at it since I'm retiring. In my life of ministry, eventually people do understand my strengths and my weaknesses. And what happens often is once it's understood that I really don't have a lot of talent with technology, is people want to send me to the class to get better with the computer. But I found if I do that, it compromises the strengths that I have. Does this make sense? They go together. If you go one way, it pulls on the other. Now I have to find where I am. I've often felt kind of conscious about how I lead meetings because I'm not an organized person. I can make an agenda, but a lot of times I don't follow the agenda, and that can be hard for people. But on the other hand, that way of dealing with a group is a gift to the Bible study. I talked with Pastor Kathy, and she's into consensus decision making. You better know. There are always undersides. Can we imagine a weakness as a gift? Why not? Here's another illustration. In acupuncture, how many of you have had acupuncture before? When you participate, you have acupuncture, you're entering into a reality that is very different from our own, that has assumptions about how the body is that are very different from our own. And usually that means that they believe in energy flowing through our body. And sometimes there are parallel energies, I can't explain all this, coming through both sides of our bodies. Just leave that where it is. But I had an experience once where I had a problem with my groin, and I kept stretching it, and I was told, stop stretching where it hurts. Stretch the other side. If you stretch the other side, it will affect your hurt side. That's not the way we think. Things are connected far more than we want them, acknowledge them to be, or maybe even want them to be. Another image, theologian Nell Morton worked with women, and she wrote a book called Hearing into Speech. What she found in women often was they didn't know their own stories, or had never thought that they had a story to tell. So by listening to them, they bring out their own selves and tell their own stories to themselves. That's what we should be doing. Imagine how different things would be if people were able to be vulnerable and share their stories. The way of the world is speed, judgment, security, power, and control. Two things you can do to see this. Watch people drive on the freeway and watch politicians, and you'll see it. Now, if Jesus were ever to be in a car on the freeway, I believe he would go to the right lane, drive the speed limit, and never leave the lane. The Pope had a Ford Focus, I think. I think Jesus would have a similar small car. Living values. The way of Jesus, you see, is not about speed or judgment or control. It's about openness, letting go of my control, having compassion, and being drawn into the stories of others and taking the time to listen. The way of Jesus is the way of acceptance, which generates unconditional love, it's sacrifice, and service. The way of Jesus, our first impulse with people, is not judgment, but acceptance. Now, going back to the freeway, imagine you're on the freeway and Dad is getting on there and he's trying to move around the freeway all over the place. He's almost hitting people. He's going too fast. And dear daughter says, Dad, look over there. Jesus is in the other lane. Let's go over there quick. Get behind him and we can follow him.